Boom, boom, boom.
Oh,
You awake?
you up? Let's see. Let's just make sure that she transitions here before we go. Hello, everyone, if you're viewing the stream live right now. Yay! Okay, cool. We are live. Wow! Isn't this so fun, Chelsea?
This is weird.
I'm gonna do something really quick and just make sure that we're up in a way that provides us with some good quality. If not, we might have to come back later. So everyone just bear with us for a hot second. I did a bunch of changes to the stream setup a little in preparation for Chelsea to take it over while I'm on vacation.
Wow, spoiler alert.
Oh, spoiler? Was that a spoiler? Were we going to mention that earlier?
I don't know.
Or later?
I was going to give you as much time as possible to change your mind.
No, Chelsea, you're going to do great.
Bad joke count number one.
Unero. What the? Hang on. Oh gosh. Now we're coming through. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, we're good.
Great.
Great. Well, hello, everyone.
Hi, friends.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to this Saturday live stream. We have a new guest host here today to talk about the emotional labor and turmoil that is with having a side hustle.
Yeah.
And that's our lovely head of marketing, our just biggest advocate, my personal life coach, Chelsea Holt.
Thank you. Remember when I asked you to be my life coach?
Yeah, look at that. Look at how the
Wow,
turntables.
the turntables. We
So,
love that.
Chelsea, I gave you a brief intro, but give everybody a little intro. Who are you? What do you do? And why are we here?
Wow, that last question's very loaded. Yeah, I'm Chelsea. I'm a radio host in my spare time. I'm a classical pian-ish, kind of. And I'm a marketing friend of Design by V and Lumastic.
Yay!
So,
And for those of you who don't know, Design by V is an agency in Charlottesville that is entirely made up of freelancers, and you guys do web, social media marketing, video,
everything.
everything under the sun. And Chelsea's basically the main project runner for that whole company, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we love it. It's not scary at all.
But I think not more importantly, but also importantly, you are the newly wife of my co-founder of Lumastic.
Yeah, Keith.
Shout out to our boy Keith, who is literally downstairs.
Keith, if you're watching this, shout out to you.
Aw.
Pour one out for Keith.
Yes, because it's Saturday, and Saturdays for the stream. Chelsea and I both have alcoholic beverages.
Cheers.
Cheers. Don't get us demonetized.
No.
But...
This is juice.
Yes, it's juice.
This is extra fermented juice. It's like kombucha-ified kombucha.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's not beer at all. Okay, first, some chat shout outs before we really delve into the topic. If you're new here, or you're watching the stream, please put something in the chat. Let us know who you are, why you decided to join us tonight, as we kind of get into the topic. But big shout out to Faith, who's on her road trip over to Montana. Thank you, Faith, for being in the stream once again.
Catherine!
Catherine, thanks for being here. Faith said, yay, Chelsea. And also Keith. Yay, Keith is in the stream.
Wow, people I love.
Yes, they came to support you, Chelsea.
Thank
and
you,
support our
everyone.
conversation about what? Tell the lovely stream what we're talking about today.
Why don't you tell the lovely stream?
Because
We're talking about side hustles, but we're talking about the emotional labor of side hustles.
Yes.
Yeah, should we start by defining what we're going to consider a side hustle tonight?
Sure, and even before that, I think that we should talk about why we decided to pick the topic.
Yeah, why don't you go first?
Okay. So we yeah, that makes more sense. We decided to pick this topic because if you haven't joined us in a while, or you're new here, or you don't subscribe to my YouTube channel, Drew Lytle, shout out, always be plugging. I have decided after 2 years of running this business full time, trying to build this into a profitable, sustainable company, to go get a full time job. And basically turn Lumastic back into a side hustle, which is what it was when I was in college. And that has been a long process for me to rectify in my head as like a good decision and path forward. So we just wanted to, also like Chelsea's been a side hustler with like podcast, radio station, multiple right, those side job things.
Jobs.
Ideas, projects like she wants to work on. And so we wanted to talk about, a lot of people talk about like the productivity aspect of this. Like, how do you divide your time and like, how do you set goals to make progress? We wanted to talk about what it's like from a human standpoint to be delving into something outside of the context of your main financial job with the hopes of turning it one day into your big like financial moneymaker, and just how like stressful that can be and how it can almost be more pressure than if it is your full-time gig that does sustain you. We can't speak a lot to that obviously, but but we can speak to the former. And so we know that there are obviously like the primary audience for this show is like creators that are using the platform to like build community around creative work. And so we wanted to talk about this topic that affects that whole gamut.
Yeah. Wow, couldn't have said it better myself.
So you want to wrap us into what we would define as a side hustle?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So I think there is a definite difference between side hustle and like a second job, right? A lot of us have to take second jobs, or a lot of people in general have to take second jobs out of necessity, or maybe you're just like really interested in like if you want to get a perk of place, you go work there sometimes. Like I know people who just like work at Trader Joe's because they want like the discounts. Yeah, right? So like what we're specifically talking about is that creative project, that podcast you do, that Dungeons and Dragons live Twitch stream that you do. And suddenly
which if you do want to leave it in the chat.
Yeah, especially Dungeons and Daddies if you're listening to this. If you're watching, if you're out there.
Yeah, we have some great software for you to plan out your next episodes.
Wouldn't that be wild?
That would be wild. Freddie Wong actually once DM'd me back on Twitter. Did I tell you about that?
You're famous.
I know, I'm famous. Well, it was because we got in a Twitter fight. Well, I wouldn't say a fight, but we had a differencing of opinion on something.
Okay.
And afterwards, I sent him a DM basically further explaining my position, and he sent me back something further explaining his position, and that was the extent of our conversation. So
there you go. Well, he knows you're out there.
Yeah, he knows I'm out there. And when we contact Dungeons and Daddies about trying out our beta, we'll DM someone else.
Yeah, we'll be calling someone else.
That conversation thread doesn't immediately appear as, oh, this is that idiot that disagreed with me on Twitter. All right, but continuing on.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about creative side hustles and creative projects. Basically anything that takes a lot of our time and self-worth, I think, is like a piece here as well, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have side hustles because they have this creativity that they want to express outside of whatever their job might be. And so I think like your side hustle is often like your main mode of expression, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about when we talk about side hustles.
Wait, talk to me more about main mode of expression. And also, while Chelsea is doing that, if you are a creator, a maker, an entrepreneur, somebody trying to build an internet-powered business, put it in the chat what you're working on. Whatever. Faith, your band counts.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, in that vein, tell us more, Chelsea.
Yeah, so I have a lot of projects that I've done, a lot of one-off projects, and they've all stemmed from this sort of need to feel creative again, or like to like flex some muscles, I think is a term that you used once before, and I think in one of your videos on YouTube, shout out to videos on YouTube.
Drew Lytle on YouTube.
Yeah, Drew Lytle in the house. And so, yeah, I think that's really what it is. It's like you create something because in like the absence of a mode of creative expression, you have to create it, right?
That's powerful. Yeah, and we were talking at dinner right before this about how me getting back into making videos, I'm on a streak of 5 so far, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was talking to Chelsea about how me getting back into that was me kind of wrestling with the fact that I had been without kind of that mode of creative expression, and that I was also going through a lot of like emotional like turmoil and change in my just like life in general. And so to work through those feelings, I felt I needed to make videos. And I think that that is like an artistic expression part that we don't normally talk about when we talk about like creator business. That I would say for most creators, the like one of the primary or secondary motivations, besides this being a business that you can grow to have an audience and like be financially free, whatever it is because it's like something that you can't help doing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of how it almost starts. My old boss at UVA, I was on a commercial shoot. Was that this week? Last week? Is that last week?
Whoa, that was last week, dude.
Okay, cool. Last week. I thought it was last week, but I was like, my gosh, time might be different than I think it is. Talked about at the end of the shoot how what he likes about making videos and like doing this as his job is the fact that it started for him as a hobby. And just something that he loved to do. And he has now found a way to like support himself doing that thing, but in that way he never wants to feel like it's lost its sense of fun.
Right.
And I thought that that was just like a really powerful thing that I was reflecting on when you and Keith had mentioned that like I had gotten really back into making videos. You said they were relatively good, and they were like, you know, you could do this.
We
like,
said more than relatively good.
Well, whatever. But you know, like if you wanted to, you could try to like really be a YouTuber. And I said in that moment, like, obviously, thanks, appreciate it. For me right now, it's more the fact that I'm trying to build consistency in the practice. Like I went without making videos for so long, and it brought me to such like a strange point that I felt I like really needed it. And I don't want to feel like I'm ever at a point where I like all of a sudden like really like just need it, and I'm at this like big low because I haven't built the practice.
Right.
I want it to just kind of like be almost a habit in my own life.
Yeah. You want it to like have a permanent spot in your agenda,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't want it to be an afterthought anymore, right?
Yeah. And I think that that's like a complicated thing when then we think about working on these creative pursuits as side hustles, because that then goes into the how do you like kind of dissect time between the thing that is financially supporting you and the thing that you like love to do and would love to one day maybe have it be financially supportive, but you're trying to take it like almost more seriously.
Yeah. I want to take a step back for a second.
Sure.
Even further. And because you see, we got this platform, right? So I need to proselytize something for a second.
Okay.
I need to abuse the power, okay? If you do not have a creative outlet, now's the opportunity to really reflect on that. Because I think also, if you have a job that financially supports you, that probably isn't what you really enjoy doing, or you like the idea of learning something new, that's your body's way of saying, like, hey, we need some sort of creative outlet, right? And I just want to speak to those people out there, too, because I think for a long time I lived in that space where I didn't really have a creative outlet. I was just going to work, going to school, and feeling super hollow because I think I didn't have something outside of that kind of rigmarole to make me feel proud and really, like, excited about something. And I think that's where when I had a therapist, shameless plug, go to therapy. Everyone deserves a therapist. You deserve a therapist. Seek resources for therapy. Proselytize.
Good plug.
Yeah. And he was basically like, well, you love playing piano all your life. Like, you should play piano again, just like a little bit every single day. And returning to that sense of creativity really helped me boost my performance in school and work as well. Even though the things I was doing at school and the things that I was doing at work weren't necessarily the things that were my pride and joy, because I had that expressive or creative outlet outside, it made me have a much more positive outlook and positive approach on my circumstance. So I think for the people out there who don't even have a side hustle, maybe you're out there thinking like, oh, I've always wanted to draw, or I've always wanted to get a camera and take pictures or something. Like, the internet is a powerful powerful tool, right? So get on there and start your thing, because I think like that, if we wanted to have a starting place of the emotional labor of a side hustle, it's getting to the point where you can have one, right? Like validate that you want one, validate that you have one. Maybe you're sitting on like a bunch of things that you've knitted and you're like, I don't know what to do. Put them up on Etsy. Put them up on Etsy.
Etsy is Chelsea's competitor site. Etsy.
What is at Etsy.com? We don't know. Don't go there.
Keith will tell us.
He'll probably like reserve the domain.
Yeah.
If he thinks it's a good enough idea, he'll take the domain. Maybe it'll reroutes. We love a good reroute.
I want to piggyback on something that you've said.
Oh, you would like to reroute?
Yes, I would like to reroute.
Okay.
Because I think another thing that we always like to talk about here on Lumastic Live, but just generally as people too, is like, one, it's okay to not have a side hustle if you like are, because right, it's the definition of side hustle as more project that you would one day maybe like to make your full thing. I feel like that is different than just creative outlet, and it's cool to just have like creative outlet in your life with no idea of capitalizing it as a business. I think that's important too. And the second aspect of this is like something that we mentioned in an earlier Lumastic Live, which you can go back in our archive to watch, is the fact that like basically everything is a creative endeavor, or can be. And so finding something that like resonates with you as a creative release can be much more broad than I think most people think. And there might be something already in your life that is that for you. And you can either take steps to make it more of a practice and a habitual thing to like bring that thing that gives you joy into your life more consistently. Or not. Like, it's all about what works for you. But we're delving away, Chelsea.
Take us away.
Well, I think that was a really important, like, little recap of where we're priming ourselves in this conversation. And now, like, in your own life, like, and you can find a pivot back on me too. Like, there is a lot of stress that comes with saying, hey, this thing that I used to do for fun, I'm now going to do it for money. Which is like, I know something you've experienced with now working professionally as a pianist. You don't have to use that as an example, but like, I know you've experienced those things. And so in terms of this, like dealing with the emotional side of side hustling, what has then been like in your own life?
Great question. Changing responsibility, right? Because I was like, now I am, so I don't want to use piano as an example, because I'm in denial that I'm a pianist. And you can't pull me out of this deep, deep place of denial that I have lived in for a number of years. But I do want to use my job at Design by V, because before, in the pandemic, I was working a lot of jobs to make ends meet, but the thing that I was doing in my spare time that was like a new love that I had found was supporting entrepreneurs, right? Largely in thanks to Lumastic, because it used to be this like social hub, still is, but
for a more niche audience.
For a more niche audience, right? There were a lot of people on there who at one point were just asking a lot of professional development kind of creative questions. And a lot of them were entrepreneurs that were updating in real time, like every single day, providing updates to like what they're currently working on in their projects. And I lived for that kind of social hub, loved it. You might be thinking, have you heard of Reddit? I have.
It's different.
Yeah. And I really, that's where I think a lot of the joy in that slog of working 5 jobs, because I was working 5 jobs in the pandemic out of necessity, but what made me feel excited about that slog work was that I had the privilege of working for a lot of local companies and like a lot of local businesses. And then as it pertains to Design by V, all of the things that I was doing for businesses, like I was talking with Joshua one time about a social media plan for Ripple, or I was talking with you about like ways that we can enhance the platform, right? Now, all of a sudden, I got picked up by Design by V to do that, but also be in charge of other people as well, right? And so the first thing that I think is kind of this scary reality is that you're only responsible for yourself largely when your side hustle is like when your creative outlet is just you, but when if it becomes a business or in the context of a business, you are now responsible for other people, right? Like I report to other people. There are other people watching my progress. There are other people who have expectations of me.
Interesting.
And that's a lot to deal with when it's okay at the end of the day, like before you like bring it to a workplace, it's okay at the end of the day if you don't get the things done on your to-do list, if you're okay with it, because you're the only person who has to be okay with that. But when it's your work, you have to hold yourself to a different kind of expectation.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that is the transition of, I think, more side hustle becomes real job, right? And where I'm at is what I feel of as real job is becoming side hustle.
Yeah.
Right? And in the things that I like both worry about and am like trying to capture in my head is like the reason for this transition is to have a greater sense of stability and security, to enable me to like be better at like work as Lumastic, right? There is the like feeling though of also like loss, right? Because like that comes with anything with change. But we were talking before at dinner too about how I think when it is a side hustle, when it is like you're saying like almost individually responsible, an individual responsibility, even though we do have a team, it's the feeling of less pressure,
right?
Because almost in a way there is less expectation of drastic progress, which I was specifically feeling just because like me and Sarah, like half of our team or our core team, because shout out to our interns, we're working full time, but without like money, like without like salary or real kind of employment. And that makes you, in a way, like I've talked about, I think on this show before, and in videos that I'm making, about how that provides like this like greater sense of pressure to work faster. I'm looking forward in this transition to almost like having, and this is something that Keith and I were actually talking about at lunch the other day too.
Nice.
Because it's really that it is again our decision, the freedom, the security to enable us to kind of go where we want to go, rather than, right, it's like you go out into the woods now as if we are like, oh, that sucks. As if we are exploring, then as if we are like fending for our lives to survive in the wilderness. And I think that that is a benefit of the idea of this thing as a side hustle. And I was saying to, I went to this like entrepreneur little meetup thing, and I was saying like one of the things I've learned is like, don't go full time on something until like it hurts so much. It is so hard to not be.
Yeah.
Because I think if I would have done that and taken it more kind of steady rather than doing this kind of jump in that I feel a lot of entrepreneurs, creators are pressured to do, I don't know if we would have been more successful, but I definitely would have felt more stable. And I wonder if in that way we could have made more progress consistently than feeling like all over the place, because there's all of this pressure to do it all.
Yeah.
You know, does that make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense. And to kind of get us to the same direction, the same place, I think you asked me before we got onto this section of the conversation, I think you asked me something. I completely answered a different question, which I probably will do a lot. But as it pertains,
I vibe with that.
This is my Wing 7 happening. Enneagram reference. We are in opposite places, right? Like, you are in this place where your full time is becoming a side, and I'm in a place where one of my like
passions
is becoming a full, right? And so if none of the stuff that we talked about in the last 10 minutes makes sense, knowing that piece of information, go back 10 minutes and then watch. I swear, time codes are all over the place.
I think that is still on topic, though, right?
Okay,
it's still
good.
Right. It's the emotional distress of like side hustling in general, right? And there's two ends, right?
Yeah.
It's when you are transitioning into it, when you're into it, and then when you transition out, right?
Ooh, yeah. Like now I'm gonna plug a book called Transitions, and get this, the guy who wrote it, his name is William Bridges. How amazing is that?
That's profound.
But he actually does talk about that. Like, the whole crux of the book is that you're always in the beginning of something, the middle something, or the end of something. So if you were to write down everything that is in your life, all of the emotional places that you're in your life wow, words. But
we need to put that on a t-shirt.
What?
Words.
Yeah. Wait, the people, the scientists,
nice, good.
the couple, it's Aaron and Ashley or something.
Evan and Caitlin.
Yes! Yeah. They have one that says
do
words
they really?
are hard.
Oh, love that. We need to get that for Keith.
Yeah, we just add him, why don't you? That's funny. But yeah, so if you were to write down or reflect on all the emotional spaces that you're in, the book is bringing comfort, because it's saying, like, you're gonna either come out of that one, or you're at the start of it, or you're in the middle of it. And it's a really great way of putting into context, I think, the ebb and flow of emotions.
Yeah.
Maybe we should read that together.
That would be sweet.
Because we're in the kind of, I mean, I need to reread, so we should do it.
I need to read.
I need to read. Put that on a t-shirt. Actually, I think that would really sell.
I can't read. I can't read on a t-shirt.
What's the Vine? Hi, my name's Jared. I'm 18 years old.
And I don't know.
Yeah. Rip Vine.
What does
Do you
this say?
think
I can't
Vine
read
was
this.
a side hustle?
Was ever?
Was it ever a side hustle? Yeah.
I'm sure, probably.
Oh, I didn't. You're like business boy. I thought you would have like known the itemized
No, I don't
history.
know. I don't know a lot about like Vine as company history besides how it imploded. But
Yikes.
that's for another time. Okay,
back to where
transitioning.
So we were talking about transitions.
So we've kind of briefly touched on what it's like to transition in, and kind of, I think that transition in can come in two ways, right? For me, it's the fact that, well, I think my case, I'm not sure, but I feel like my case is kind of unique, where it's like I've tried this thing full time and like couldn't make it work in the time allotted, and so transitioning to be a side hustle to be able to enable myself to keep going. But I think a lot of times how it happens is somebody has something and is like inspired to start. And I think that invigoration and kind of like passion at the get-go is like something I experienced at the beginning of Lumastic. But I would say a mistake I made in that first transition, in that first aspect is just that I went, I think, too hard, too fast. And I think that is something that a lot of creators and entrepreneurs are almost pressured to do, again, in a way. Because, right, it's this race toward the end goal of, like, you being able to go full time or make enough money to quit your job, whatever it is. And I think that can almost really be dangerous, because it's wrapped up in a lot of this like kind of burnout culture that we're like causing a lot of younger like people to do by working themselves too hard. And yeah, I think that is like an important thing to to reference, and like a piece of advice I would give is like go slow. And you mentioned something at dinner about this like idea of meeting expectations, and almost this idea of like you setting goals for yourself and not hitting the goal feels like garbage.
Right.
But something that one of like our advisors told me the other day was like, for a lot of younger entrepreneurs, and again, I always say this and clarify, creators are entrepreneurs, but I digress, right? Like, is that we don't, because we've never done this before, we don't know where the goals should be. We don't know how much we can accomplish in a month. And we're always like hyper optimistic. And so we set these like lofty things for ourselves, and then we don't hit them. And then we feel like garbage, when in reality, you were not the problem, right? If you worked very hard, right, and felt like you were putting in the time, right, it's the goal that was wrong, and it's because you've never done this before. Sorry, that was just like something, I don't know where my point was with this.
We'll keep going.
Those are just like two things that I feel like I am thinking a lot about as I transition for Lumastic to become kind of that side hustle once again, because those are the things I feel I did wrong when I started it as a side hustle while I was in college.
Yeah, and I think cool.
Excellent commentary.
Yeah, way to just let me forget what I was gonna say. But the two things that I was thinking of is 5 minutes ago, we're talking about the transitioning out versus transitioning in. And you have been in a place where Lumastic was your side culture before, or your side husle, right? And I kind of think when we were talking at dinner, I was a little pessimistic, shocker, about making, or like this transition, just anticipating that this transition is going to be really hard. But I'm also,
which it will be, like,
right. We don't want to negate that.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that I'm excited about is that it helps us gain clarity anytime that we can step back from something, right? And I think it's interesting knowing you and the journey of Lumastic, pretty well acquainted with you and the journey of Lumastic, that when Lumastic was your side hustle, your goal was to create a platform that was a software tool for creators. And then when it became your main thing, it expanded, right?
Yeah.
And you guys got off target, right? And that wasn't a result of any one person. That was a result of just a lot of things. But I'm really cool that now really cool. See? Really excited that at the end of this kind of period, or the start of a new journey, right, that you are returning back to the original idea, which we all agree is like the best one anyway.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about you kind of taking a step back is that you get to look at a larger picture and take your time thinking about it. Yeah. And kind of regrouping, right?
Yeah. And I'd even say like it presents more focus. Like we were talking like earlier about how I think a lot of that kind of scope creep was, you're right, like a lot of factors. One of them I think being we were operating with Lumastic as a startup, because that's like the when I started it, it was like to me a business, right? And I didn't really know what a startup was. And then in college, startup culture is like really prevalent. And so you get sucked into that. And then for like the past 2.5 years, that's like the only mode that like I've been exposed to and operating in. And so I think that scope creep happens a lot too, because like startup entrepreneurs in particular are taught to like think huge and think massive, like big giant market opportunity, whatever, because that's what like venture capitalists want to see. And so even if it is not best for you or your business, the way you want to align, you and your partner, like our partners want to like align yourselves around building a company, that's like what you are like pressured into doing and thinking as. Yeah. And so I think now when we decided to bootstrap, make this transition to like Lumastic is going to be like we describe as, right, like family software company like that makes collaboration tools for creators.
Truly.
That framing it in my brain differently, I think, is what then re-enabled that sense of focus of, okay, we're doing this thing, which I think allowed us to make amazing progress on the product, which again, really excited for everybody to see. You can sign up with the link in the description to be part of our beta. We're sending those invites super soon. But I digress. So it allowed us to make really great progress with the product, and I think also reframe how we think about building the business. And I think that is the thing that freed me to feel comfortable and okay after some like reflection and emotional transition to this idea that, okay, the best thing for Lumastic right now is that I get a job, right? Which is something that normally would feel like giant failure. And like, that's the thing I had to wrestle with, is understanding that it is not. But yeah, I think that's like I don't know exactly what my point was here, but that was like a thing that I thought about, an important aspect that I wanted to talk about.
All right, I just want to pause for a second. Hannah, when you're editing this into clips, somewhere, can you keep 2 tallies? One is, the first tally I want you to keep is, anytime I said an awkward word, because I was trying to stall, like, cool. And then also I want you to keep, there you go, there's another for your tally. Yeah, I want you to keep a tally of all the times we said, are we making any sense?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, or something along those lines. So
Yeah.
I don't know what my point was.
I don't know where you were going here. Yeah. And then let us know, because I think that would be really fun. It'd be a nice TikTok.
Yeah. Okay, shout out to Catherine
tons
Talley
of people.
and Sarah and Katie Mead for being in the chat. Catherine said, "We love you because you're amazing," which I agree.
Wow. Thanks, fam.
This is the nicest chat on the internet. Sarah said that she's also here. Thank you, Sarah, for being here.
Thank you for being here.
There is your acknowledgement. And Katie Mead.
Hi.
Katie Mead.
We love you too.
Said, love these people and this advice. Katie, also, like, Katie's an entrepreneur. I helped her with a startup camp. And so would love your thoughts on this. You say that our advice is good, which bodes well, but would love to know how you feel it might apply to your own life.
Be more constructive with your feedback.
Be more constructive with your feedback.
Flight of the Conchords reference.
Okay, Chelsea. So we've discussed end. We've discussed lots of me in this beginning. And now let's delve into more this middle. This, like, how do you deal with the slog and the kind of emotional labor that is running a side hustle?
Yeah. Yeah, I think before we get into here, we should just preface with some personality information. I am prone to extreme pessimism and melancholia, okay? And I think Drew is the opposite.
Yeah,
so,
baby.
Take what information you vibe with and ditch the rest.
No,
as always.
It'll be a great middle.
Oh, there you go.
It'll be a great middle.
Form your own decisions.
Yes, exactly.
Always.
Okay, so.
Slogging. It's every bit of the word suggests, right? Mm-hmm. The word slog itself is awful, right?
Mm-hmm.
does not roll off the tongue.
Does not connote anything.
It's
seemingly
basically
good.
onomatopoeia, if you think about it. It sounds the way it feels. That's not what an onomatopoeia is it?
I think
Chelsea goes back to 3rd grade.
Yeah, who knows? Type in the chat what the word is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. So in your own experience, but also think about it as, like, when you were side hustling this idea of helping entrepreneurs, telling stories of entrepreneurs. Like, these things, like, take me back to the Chelsea Does a Podcast spark.
Yeah, take me back. Yeah, well, I have a podcast out there, a whopping 3 episodes before I experienced burnout. Love it. I have a lot of advice I would give my past self about the emotional slog. So here we are. Past Chelsea. I'm just going to talk to you for a second. I think knowing yourself is a really important thing that's going to happen when you have a side hustle, is you're going to get to learn hello. You're going to get to know a lot of things about yourself, and get ready. Some of them might not be great. So one of the things that I learned about myself when I was slogging through the podcast work was that I experienced burnout as a result of poor planning. I had talked to a lot of people who had done podcasts before I decided to start Central Ethos, and every single person told me to work ahead, right? So, like, have a certain number of episodes in the bank before you launch. Otherwise, you're going to have to, like, play catch up with yourself all the time, and it's going to suck, right? I did not listen to that first piece of advice, and I experienced just that thing where I was like, I'm going to put out a new episode every single week. And that was really, really hard because I had no experience in audio editing at all. Keith was a saint and audio edited the first episode, even though he was working and still works 2 full-time jobs. So that was amazing. Shout out to Keith. And so that was the first piece of advice I didn't listen to. And then, because I didn't listen to that advice, I thought that I was a failure and was too embarrassed to keep going. That's also something that is something I found out about myself that I really did not like. And I'm still kind of reconciling with right now, or wrestling with. Yeah. And I think that specific thing is part of the emotional labor that's hard for a side hustle, because so much of your self-worth can get wrapped up into it, because a lot of times it's an outward expression of yourself, right? It's what you do to creatively express or use as an emotional outlet. And so you have to be prepared to learn things about yourself that you don't necessarily like.
Interesting.
And that's hard because we are already our own worst critics, right?
Yeah. And I think that that's like, what is his name? Ben Horowitz or something wrote this book. I hope it's Ben Horowitz. If not, sorry to whoever wrote this book, but it's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And
he talks about rocks.
Yeah, it's actually a geology textbook. But one of the things I took away from that book is like what you kind of just said with the you learn things about yourself that you don't necessarily like. I think it's like, to me, again, optimistic approach. It's more like you find out your weaknesses. You know?
I think that could be a show. Is Chelsea says something incredibly negative, and then Drew says something incredibly positive about the negative thing. But yeah, no, I don't mean to cut you off, because that is a really great reframing.
Right. It's like you are doing something exceptionally hard that requires basically all of yourself, right? And all of yourself means the stuff that you're weak at.
Yeah.
And this goes into a lot of the things about what usually the side hustle middle is a lot of you by yourself working on something. I am grateful and benefit from the fact that me transitioning in this process, it is not. But that's, I think, one of the reasons that your weaknesses get highlighted so much is because you becoming a freelance video producer is not just you making videos, which is probably the thing that you're good at, right? It is you being a client relationship manager. It is you being an accountant. It's you being a social media and web design marketer, right? Like lots of things that you're saying you have to learn and stretch yourself for. And that stuff takes so much time in comparison, you feel, to the thing you got into the thing doing, right? Which in my example was like freelance video. And yeah, it can suck, right? And that's why businesses operate with more than one person, usually, right?
Right. And I think I'm going to cut you off for a second, because that is a very important point, right? When it's you, it's like Scott Pilgrim Against the World, right? Like, when it's you and you are your side hustle, you have to be all the things, right? Like you just described. And that can be incredibly daunting as well, because you're only one person.
Yeah.
And then you'll end up shaking your fist to the skies and being like, this is not fair, right?
Yeah,
because
and this
it's hard.
is so hard.
Yeah, it's really hard being a one-woman show or a one-person show, right? It sucks.
Yeah.
But we didn't come here to tell you why life sucks, because chances are you already knew that. we're here to talk about some of the strategies or some of the things that I guess we've learned about the slog. And I will say the most beautiful thing about Central Ethos remains that it shows you can do hard things, right? And I think when I decided to kind of shut down Central Ethos for the time being, I entered into this period of failure where I really felt like I wasn't good enough, I wasn't creative enough, I would never amount to anything creatively. Like, my creative projects would never really amount to anything. Don't do that, because it's not true. Anytime that you, even if you have to like close a project or put a pin in it, there are so many things that I have taken with me along the way, right? And the first thing that I think I learned from Central Ethos in that period of my life is that it is possible to do hard things. It's possible to do new things as well. I had no experience. I wasn't even on the radio at this point, so I wasn't comfortable in front of a microphone, and that was also another cool thing, is that I learned that I could do hard things, but importantly, I discovered that I loved the medium. And I loved this medium of being on air, and I ended up transitioning into a place on the radio, which is actually a way better use of that like creativity itch, because I didn't have to do any podcast editing, which is great. I got to plan and talk about all the things that I wanted to do. I think with Central Ethos, which was an interview style podcast, I felt like I had to kind of relinquish creative control sometimes in order to do the interviewee justice, right? Like you
were in charge of telling their story.
Yes.
And you felt beholden to that.
Yeah. Which was also a really valuable learning experience, right? It's almost kind of like a journalism kind of experience where you're presented with a story, and it might not be the story that you were hoping they would tell you, but
it's the one you have to tell.
It's the one you have to tell, yeah. And that was really cool. But all of the things that I didn't like about podcasting, I ended up really enjoying with radio. So I think the important thing about slogging through your side hustle is that all of the information that you learn about yourself, even if it's stuff that you don't like qualities that you don't like, is really incredibly valuable intel.
Yeah. Because
I think a lot of people, myself included, before I got into this place where I took on a bunch of side projects, I think I was always afraid of it because I was afraid of that process. I was afraid of learning about myself. I was afraid of going deeper. But yeah, you asked at the very beginning, why are we here? And to take an existential turn.
Whoa. Not yet, Chelsea. Well, actually, no, you can if you want.
I was just going to say, that's why I think I'm here, right? Because
you mean at a more high level?
At a meta level.
I thought you were going to talk about death, and I was like, I'm not ready for that right now.
Wow. No, that's for next week when you're not here.
Yeah, that's for next week. But that's
think
when Chelsea blacks out the lights.
That would be real emo. No, I won't do it. It's tempting. I like being a little emo sometimes. But I think that to get meta, that's an extremely worthwhile process.
Yeah.
And I think it's like
to have a higher kind of thinking of purpose for why you're in the thing you're in. Right.
Don't be afraid to learn about yourself.
Yeah, and for that to be almost like the only outcome.
Yeah, because if nothing else comes of it, all of that is there too, right? Like, I think when you are emotionally wrapped up into your side hustle, right? And you talked about this on one of your last videos when you were like, I don't want people to think that I'm quitting, right? And having to deal with this fact that, like, when you are taking something and it becomes on the back burner, not the back burner in priority, but it's becoming the second priority, there are going to be a lot of people who think like, oh, well, what's going on, you know? Or yourself, you're probably thinking like, how do I treat this new transition in my life, you know? Like, are people going to think that I quit?
Right, exactly.
And that's incredibly scary and hard, right? Because all of a sudden, like, you are experiencing everybody else's emotions too.
Yeah.
Kind of like a parasocial relationship, which is a thing we didn't talk about today.
I'm now thinking that that's a video I want to make. I would not to spoil it. Sorry, continue. Sorry. Now I'm just talking to you, but I forget that the camera is there. Go. Sorry,
But if nothing else, right? Like, you have carried on. You have already learned so many things, right? Which are going to inform drastically.
Going forward.
Yeah.
Sick. Chelsea, that was profound. Everyone, Oh, okay.
Hannah, keep a tally of how many times he says I'm profound.
Yeah, profound. Keith said thanks for the shout out.
Always.
Faith said I missed Central Year. Sorry you got burnt out, Joby. And yes, it is by Ben Horowitz. Thank the Lord.
We have a fact checker.
Fact checker, Faith Surrey. Our resident one. Okay, there are two things that this made me think of that I tried to keep in my head.
Go for it. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I know. One of them is consistency, and then the other is the idea of like setting expectation. And I'm gonna do them in reverse order. So like the setting expectation thing that I talked about like earlier in this of let yourself knock things out of the park. In terms of like the goal setting and how much progress you think you can make as something being a side job. I think there's also this idea of having this expectation that this thing will become a full-time gig. Or even like setting expectations for yourself, like that I now am going to be a podcaster.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that this is now, again, this wrap up in identity of like who I am. And I expect myself to be this. This is a lot of stuff I talk about with like you are not beholden to your past self. Right? Your past self makes decisions with less information than you have right now. And so you should get better at listening to you right now than listening to what you felt you should be doing based on what your past self set up for you to do. And so like in your example, this idea of, one, it's the expectation of I'm going to put out an episode every week, right? Even though I don't know how to edit anything in an editor or whatever, like there are a couple suggestions to like leave that burnout behind. One of them being like, and something I feel like I tried to help you with, but right, like hindsight, and also like it's not my thing, right? But it's this, like even what I'm trying to do with being consistent with making videos is setting the expectation for what I think of as a video way lower. Right? Like my taste of what I feel I want to be putting out so high.
Yeah.
In comparison to how much time I have.
Yeah.
And so what I've decided to do, which leads to my second thing, which is this, my goal is to build consistency with the practice, right? Is like, okay, then if the big ultimate thing for me is that I put out a video every Monday, everything else is secondary, including the actual product, right? Because this thing I preach now from Jack Conte, right? It's like the work to publish idea.
Yeah.
That is something I am trying to prioritize in my life way more, to get away from my perfectionistic side and feeling like, again, that my identity is wrapped up in the thing produced. And if the thing produced is not entirely representative of who I feel I am as an artist, then it shows that I am bad or I am not good enough, right? I am working to try to separate that. And that's what I would recommend to anybody starting something as side hustle, whatever, is, again, it goes back to this mentality of remembering that the thing is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the original idea why most people say, I want to turn this into my job, is because this is more fun than my current work. Right? But if you make your new thing less fun,
yeah,
right, that's when you start losing the motivation and the feeling like, is this worth it, whatever. And then you either burn out, you quit, whatever it is, and you feel like shit because you're like, but my past self loved that so much, and now I just feel like depressed and like garbage.
Yeah.
So those are the two things I would recommend.
Okay, so be consistent and set your expectations real low in all things in life. Just kidding.
Yeah. Or even, well, kind of like prioritize consistency.
Yeah.
And give yourself grace with everything else.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was talking about this, and we talked about this at dinner. I was talking about this with my therapist, and I'm just going to give free therapy here because therapy is way too expensive, so anytime I can give free therapy,
Venmo at Chelsea-Hall.
No, it's the opposite of what I'm saying. Therapy should be open source.
Whoa, that's profound.
Hannah.
I love that one's genuine.
Another one.
That was genuine.
So your other ones were fake.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but this is like the emotional slog. Like the point that I want to kind of add to is the hardest part is we have both experienced where it becomes linked with our identity and our self-worth, right? And that is dangerous territory all the time, because then you watch things like Inside and then you want to melt in a hole for a very long time. Telling you for a friend. Yeah, so the free therapy nugget of truth is that it is okay to not reach a goal. And that is really hard for me to say out loud. But you have to give yourself grace, like Drew was saying, and know that it is okay, right? And I was talking about how I used to really love working out, right? And I probably haven't done that in a very long time because I experienced a lot of burnt outness, a lot of transition in my life. And I kept writing it in my like to-do list and in my calendar, right? Which is, again, sometimes the productivity discussion only takes you so far, right?
Yeah.
Because the productivity strategist would say, build that time into your calendar, find an accountability buddy, right? And I had all of those things and it still didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's because emotionally I wasn't there yet, right?
Yeah. Again, it's like you don't know the goal to set for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And the
It's the wrong goal.
productivity kind of like conversation, the productivity, I guess, like devil on my shoulder was like, you had one job to work out twice last week. You had it in your schedule. You had accountability buddies and you didn't show up for yourself. Why won't you show up for yourself, right? And then my therapist, shout out to my therapist, said, you have to be okay with that. You have to tell yourself it's okay that you didn't set that goal and set a different one, right? And just kind of regroup.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the slog, right? It's like you have a lot of people telling you, just time management skills, develop time management skills,
Right.
phone a friend, talk out your ideas with a friend, and like all of the things that you can do in this like startup culture or side hustle culture. But at the end of the day, if you are not taking time to do the emotional labor, to be consistent, to set small goals, to see small goals as big victories when they're accomplished, like that will take you to the burnout like way faster. So retweet your consistency thing.
Hell yeah. Chelsea, that was awesome. And I'm doing a note to myself right here is that I want to make a video about the things that I've learned about being a creative, productive human from dog training.
Are you going to reference that book?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Because one of the things when you said like treat like these small goals as huge victories, like that's one of the things they say to do with your dog.
Aww.
Right? Especially if they seem slow or like they're having an off day or whatever, you amp up the reward.
Give
right?
yourself the reward that you would give your dog. Give yourself the love and the attention and the grace that you give your pets.
And the patience.
Oh, true.
Yeah, like I think that that's a huge part that I've learned about myself in general, right? Is my like optimistic big old tendency is like, let me set huge goal for myself because I have big dream.
Right.
Right. I have like hyper imagination.
Right.
And it's like, well, let's like ground some shit in reality because Drew, you live in reality. You don't live in the land inside your head. Right?
This is my Wing 7 that's like always in dreamland.
Exactly. It's like you live here, and so your goals need to be realistic for what is actually possible right here.
Right.
Because if you don't do that, then it just sucks.
And if you don't achieve that goal, right, then you have to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
I just want to like keep repeating that because it's the advice I need to hear a lot of the time.
And again, I think, oh my gosh, another analogy is like, you can change the goal, right? The goal is not set in stone, and that's like a big thing that like video games do really well, right? They're changing difficulty, they're changing reward levels, they're changing everything on the fly for where you're at.
Get off X Games mode.
Yeah, get off X Games mode and go and be realistic with yourself because it's better that you continue to hit the thing and get better and feel the wins than you set yourself to this big old high standard because either there's pressure externally or you're seeing people you feel of as peers like doing things differently and you feel like you should be with them, right? Like let us not compare ourselves to anyone but who we are in this moment. right? And our goal is to be better tomorrow than we were today. But that comes from having a realistic expectation of who we are today and having that self-awareness.
Yeah, and I know we have like 2 seconds left, but
That's true.
To add one more tiny point back onto this thing is that if you keep missing the goal that you've set for yourself and you hate that, look back on the things that you have done. Because if it is truly something you love, like I love music, I don't play piano enough, I really need to. But if I think of all the music that I've listened to and I've studied or I've vibed with, that in essence is still a step taking me to those music making goals.
Yeah.
So, actionable item for this week.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Love that.
Love yourself.
Love yourself.
Love yourself.
Set some realistic goals. Reflect on the goals you've set for yourself. Also reflect on if you've set any goals for yourself actually.
Have you ever set a goal? we should write a song about that.
Oh Lord.
So go out there and write songs.
Write songs, whatever it is. But like, I think like having the thing. This is like common advice, but having the like write the smart, like the very specific thing, and having that thing not be specific in terms of your abstract idea of reality, but in terms of something you feel you could knock out of the fucking park. I think that is a part of like smart goal setting that is not talked about. It's supposed to be talked about in the idea of realistic.
Right.
Right? But fuck realistic, right? Like I want like easy.
Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna do a video on all of this in the context of dog training.
That's right.
I want to write a blog post about like actionable steps you can do to become emotionally aware during this log. Right?
Yes.
I want to talk about that stuff a bit more.
Yeah. I think that brainstorming those things would be really fun, and I think tandeming that blog post into a video for the Lumastic channel would be pretty cool. Or even like doing a follow-up to this live.
Yeah.
And you like go through the list in like a video form, I think would be really great.
The post game.
Yeah, the post game, exactly. Of like
when you're already sloshed. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
This is cool. Thank you for having me. I feel like we both came away inspired.
I think so,
which is really lovely.
And we hope that people in the chat Imperious Videos, Harder Grease Speak. Whoa! Imperious Videos, who are you?
Hello?
And, hello, we'd love to talk to you.
Also, everyone follow us on social media at This Is Lumastic.
Yeah.
Imperious Videos, we're talking to you.
We have to do our closeout. You can follow us on Instagram at This Is Lumastic, Twitter at This Is Lumastic. Again, if you're a creator, somebody working on building an internet business, there's a link down in the description to sign up for the beta of our product, which is collaboration tools that help you do that and be more connected to other people who are doing that. Yeah. But Chelsea, you said thanks for having me. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I think this really was a conversation that I will reflect on very often. It has given me a lot of inspiration of more things that I want to discuss and talk about. As somebody who makes videos about being someone who makes videos, and. Yeah, I think that there were a lot of good takeaways. I would invite anyone here in the chat now. We've got I know it's 8:00, but I think we'll hang out here for a little bit just to take things from the chat or whatever. But if you have anything you want to add to this conversation, the chat is a great place to do that, just because the live chat stays with the video, and a lot of valuable insight I think can come from people's interpretations and own experiences and stories through that. But no obligation. It's just something that helps build kind of community here. Okay, in that vein, Faith said, "Peep that postcard in the back." Yes, Faith, thank you for my postcard. Also, actually, yeah, I'm working on getting an address that people can send stuff to, because I want to turn this wall into a featurette of Lumastic creators.
Oh, beautiful.
In that way.
Speaking of
exactly, I was gonna say we had to do a shout out.
Jennifer Fields, I'm trying.jpg, creator of these earrings, love them. She's got an Etsy. I cannot.
An
okay.
Etsy.
Hannah Tally all the times I couldn't say Etsy. I'm trying goods. IMTRYINGGOODS.
Yes, and I have one of
You have
her
something of
prints
hers.
here, but Sarah knows I've been looking for it for like 2.5 weeks. It might be in that cabinet, but that's one of the things I want to put right here. Okay, cool. That was just a random tangent. Faith said, yes, I think talking more about what realistic/easy goal setting can look like would be helpful. Yes.
Yeah, we got to.
We got you.
Now that we know that this conversation is valuable to more people than just us, we will provide more resources because we've got a lot to say because we emotional slog all the time.
Yeah, and obviously this is something that we're going to be where we build these resources for ourselves and share them with you, because right, the whole adage of we learn things the hard way so that hopefully you don't have to, and yeah, we will definitely share those either in some sort of medium, whether that be a blog post, a video, or in one of these Elastic Lives, or
social media as well. It's just a really great place.
Yeah, it's just
Please follow
that's
us.
why following us on Instagram, specifically probably Instagram is the most place we are active, is quite helpful. But cool, yeah, thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you for being here.
We hope you enjoyed this, and now I'm gonna teach Chelsea how to end the stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you go click that big red button up in the top. Bye. And we're done.
Yeah.